What are some of the projects on D-Sci that you've been looking at?
It's very interesting. It's called Biohacker DAO. I actually went there to measure my pressure. There are interesting projects in D-Sci space like HairDAO. HairDAO is basically trying to make a pill or a drug to not lose your hair. Previous cycle, it was mostly about DeFi and NFTs, right? So Ether was the reserve currency for participating in DeFi and buying NFTs, right? This cycle is mostly about meme coins, right? What is the reserve currency, reserve asset for meme coins? It's Solana, right? Most of the meme coin training is happening on Solana.
Are there any verticals you're excited about other than D-Sci and DeFi?
We're very excited about the intersection between AI and memes. We are the first one that made an allocation into a project or token called PartCoin.
Okay, I've heard.
So yeah, we own like 1% of the total supply. You know what happened with Polymarket, right? There was one French guy who bet 20 million on Trump. Have you heard the story?
No.
No. So it was very interesting because he realized the companies or the agencies conducting polls in the US, they're not doing it the right way.
We're in Bangkok with Global Blockchain Show, and today I'm with Joe from Sigil Fund.
Hi, Mia.
Welcome.
Thanks for inviting.
It's good to have you on.
Yeah.
So tell me, first of all, how's DEF CON?
Well, today it started. It's, the last DEF CON happened in Bogota 2 years ago. There was no DEF CON last year. So finally, this feels like a big reunion happening after 2 years. The markets couldn't be better, right? But,
Yeah.
Ethereum, DEF CON is a conference focused on Ethereum and Ethereum development. So it's a lot of tech discussed over there. So people are not really talking about the price, even though Bitcoin is
Of course.
Is at all-time high, almost at 90K, right?
Yeah.
Which is nice, right? That despite the price action, people are still focused on tech and building.
It's great. This conference is super focused on the tech. Ethereum has had I want to say a bumpy year in terms of vibes. The vibes have been slightly off. Did you feel this? What's your view on this?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So I've been in space since 2013, right? Before Ethereum white paper was published in 2014 by Vitalik. And I got into Ethereum very early on, and I focused most of my spare time on Ethereum and keeping up with development that is happening there. And this year it has been quite interesting, right? And if you talk about, it's mostly about the price, right? That competition that Ethereum has, especially in Solana, was able to get the mindshare and also the activity migrating from Ethereum to the other chains, right? And if you think about Ethereum as reserve assets for certain actions that you do in the previous cycles, let's say in the first cycle that Ethereum had in 2014 to 2018, it was used mostly for ICOs, right? So you had to own Ether asset to be able to invest into ICOs, right? So basically Ethereum or Ether, the asset, was the reserve currency for ICOs. That's why people, had to pile in and buy Ethereum. So there was a huge demand and price followed, right? And then in the previous cycle, it was mostly about DeFi and NFTs, right? So Ether was the reserve currency for participating in DeFi and buying NFTs, right? So that's why price followed. But this cycle is mostly about meme coins, right? What is the reserve currency, reserve asset for meme coins? It's Solana, right? Most of the meme coin training is happening on Solana, right? So that's why Ethereum has been not performing very well, and other assets were outperforming Ether this year. But Ethereum Foundation made it clear they are more focused on other than financial use cases of Ether, or they're more excited about other than financial use cases. So there are so many different segments that are happening, right? So we are very bullish on D-Sci, for example, Decentralized Science.
What are some of the projects on D-Sci that you've been looking at?
It's very interesting. It's called Biohacker DAO. I actually went there to measure my pressure.
Okay.
When you travel and you go to conferences, you are not in your routine, right? So it was very high. It was like 180 to 100, right? So that's really bad. It tells me I should slow down and take it more easy. But it's really hard in this market and with the conferences
sure.
and with all the events and with all the meetings you are having, right? So So basically, Biohacker DAO is mostly focused on all the biohacking stuff you can do to hack your body. There are interesting projects in D-Sci space like HairDAO. HairDAO is basically trying to make a pill or a drug to not lose your hair, right? Because
okay.
the idea is that this field is not very well funded. With the blockchain infrastructure, they can have some edge in terms of getting the pill ready and for the masses. So
interesting.
But I'm mostly focused on DeFi and stable coins and financial use cases within our fund.
Yeah, it feels like the industry came back to its core fundamental objective, early objective at least, which is the finance.
Right.
So DeFi has been for me like coming back together, and the focus has been there. Whether it's stable coins, whether it's even the meme coins, it's still on the finance side. From my view.
Do you have some meme coins?
You're not the one asking the questions.
Yeah.
So my view here is, how do you see DeFi? I feel like DeFi is going to have a strong year next year.
Right.
How do you see it playing out? Because we had someone earlier that said that it was actually, I can say it was Kane from Infinex. He said that DeFi needs to be fun again.
Right.
What is your take?
I think it's fun. I think it's already happening. So year and a half ago, or last summer, let's say this summer 2023, we had an exercise in our fund. Like with Viscantes actually initiated it, and he asked like, what are we most bullish on in the next cycle, right? And we agreed on one thing, and it was prediction markets. Prediction markets and prediction markets can be considered as DeFi, right? Because you are basically betting peer to peer on any market that you can imagine. And prediction markets were basically the first use case or one of the first use cases that you could do on the top of Ethereum, right? So we had projects like Augur early in 2016, I believe. It was one of the first ICOs. Then Gnosis, right? And Gnosis pivoted to Gnosis Safe and other use cases, but the prediction markets never took off, right? There was some activity, but very minimal. The UX wasn't good, and it never happened, right? But then we were thinking last year, elections are coming, right? Last cycle, there was actually a lot of activity happening on FTX, right? People were betting a lot, especially the last day before the elections or on the elections day. Now we have a project called Polymarket, right? That last year in the summer, like not many people knew about it, right? But we were already using it. There was some activity happening, and there was already market for presidential elections. There were other markets like, is Joe Biden going to step down? Is he going to be running? Who is going to be the Democratic nominee, right? So Michelle Obama was at 8% at one point. So it was very interesting, right? We decided, or we came to the conclusion that prediction markets are going to have their moment in 2024 before the presidential elections. That incentivize us to get some allocation in this segment, right? And who is the winner in the segment? Well, Polymarket. So we managed to get allocation in the equity of Polymarket at good terms that are. Once they release their token, and maybe if they do IPO one day, it's gonna be good.
That's great. I actually on prediction markets, like the way I started working in the industry, so I was exposed, but I started working on the industry. The first project I worked with was prediction market.
Oh, really? Which
And
one?
it was called Guesser.
Guesser. Okay.
It was acquired a month after I joined.
Uh-huh.
And so that was very, that was a sign back then. And so I was doing marketing, like growth. So it was interesting to see like the activity and how it would play out. It's pretty much the same. It was a bit more of a playful approach to it, I would say. But yeah, it's an interesting field for sure.
And you know what happened with Polymarket, right? There was one French guy who bet 20 million on Trump. Have you heard the story?
20 million on No.
No. So it was very interesting because he realized that the way the companies or the agencies conducting polls in the U.S., they're not doing it the right way. They're asking the respondents, who are you planning to vote for, right? Instead of asking, who do you think your neighbor would vote for, right? Because if somebody asks you, who are you voting for, maybe you don't want to disclose it, right? You feel it's a personal question. You don't want other people to know who you're voting for. But if somebody asks you who your neighbor is voting for, right, then it's something different, right? You really think about it and you give your best answer, right? So he paid some agency to conduct such a poll where the agents were asking who do you think your neighbor is voting for, and he realized that it was vastly different from the general polls. And it was pro-Trump, right? So he decided, okay, he has an edge in the market. He's going to bet 20 million. He bet 20 million. He won 20 million, right? Because when he bet, the odds were like 50-50.
Yeah.
And 2 days after the elections, France decided to ban Polymarket. So that's how you know that you are winning, that the Polymarket is winning, that the big governments are banning you.
How do you see Trump winning affecting the industry?
In a big way. And we are seeing it, right? Already in the market. It's been 1 week since the elections, not even 1 week. Bitcoin is at all-time high. DeFi segment repriced massively to the upside. The second aspect of DeFi that is going to have a huge impact is our real world assets, right? So this is something, thanks to Trump, will be possible with the regulation that is in favor of crypto. So you will be able to use treasuries as collateral. It's already happening, right, with projects like Ondo. You will be able to use real estate assets as collateral.
The impact of the elections. How do you see the elections impacting other than that? How will the industry be different? I guess like regulation obviously is a huge one, but also the fact that the U.S. president has this energy and, it's not against it. It gives Americans the freedom and, like the standard American behavior is not one to hold back,
Right.
like generally speaking, compared to Europe, for example. So how do you see the industry being affected by this?
There have been talks about fee switch for already many years in terms of projects like Uniswap, ENS, and others, and it's finally going to happen thanks to Trump, I suppose, because the regulatory framework will make it very very simple for these projects not to be chased out of the U.S. and the founders to be chased out of the U.S. Yeah, I'm very bullish on U.S. Companies working in crypto, and that's why we also made allocations in projects like Uniswap, in projects like Circle, in equity, and so on.
That's great. How do you see other L1s? So we've been talking about Ethereum. You talked about Solana. There's like obviously like Sui, Aptos, Near, like and so on. What's your judgment here?
If you look at Sui and we look at Aptos, right, and they're considered to be the Solana killers, right? This is the narrative why they are performing so well, because Solana was framed as Ethereum killer. These other L1s are framed as Solana killers, and when you look at the fundamentals, right, there is not much activity happening on Sui or Aptos. if you look at the stablecoins growth, it's growing steadily on Sui. But the reason why it's growing is because you are getting incentives, right, on projects like Sui and on Navi Finance. So you're getting incentives in Sui tokens, right? So foundation is funding or incentivizing users to use those projects, and this playbook has been played many times, right, in the last cycle, and it worked, and it's working now. But let's see how it ends up. It's not long term sustainable.
Yeah, I can see. Are there any verticals you're excited about other than D-Sci and DeFi?
We're very excited about intersection between AI and memes.
And memes.
So yeah, I believe we are the
AI
first.
memes.
Yeah, we are the first one that made an allocation into a project or token called PartCoin.
Okay, I've heard.
So yeah, we own like 1% of the total supply.
Okay.
I think we allocated into it like the first or second day after it got created. Yeah. Which was a huge discussion, right? Like if you want to make an allocation into a coin called PartCoin, because our investors, they have access to their portfolio every day, every midnight it updates, and they see the breakdown of all the assets, right? So they can see, okay, like next day that they have PartCoin in their portfolio. And one guy, actually quite famous poker player, he posted on his Instagram profile that saying that he took a screenshot of the portfolio where PartCoin was listed, and he wrote that he's not sure if he should withdraw all the money or deposit more. That his asset manager is buying PartCoin, right?
Yeah.
But,
who was this?
I forgot the name.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You can show me later.
But yeah, he's quite famous poker player. Then we next day we got a new investor thanks to his post, because he has quite a big following on Instagram, and somebody
That's great. Yeah.
somebody wanted to deposit, so because of that post, so that was funny.
There's quite a few AI meme coins now.
Yeah.
Have you looked into others?
Yeah. So in our fund, the main meme coin master is Fiscantes.
Yeah.
And also we have a guy dedicated to meme coins. He's very young. He's in 20s, and I believe it's like the new generation has an edge, right, when it comes to meme coins, right? So, and he's locked in. He's in the trenches, right?
In the trenches.
Yeah. And yeah, it's been performing very well. Yeah. So, and back to your question, like the segments that we are excited about. There is also, I already mentioned D-Sci, right? The decentralized science. We are quite bullish on DeFi, right? The centralized physical infrastructure. There are not so many projects that liquid funds can invest to. Like there are many projects, many teams where you can make an allocation as a VC fund. But since we are a liquid fund, we made a big allocation in Helium.
Okay.
And we look at a bunch of others, but so far we realized that it's not the right timing for us to increase the allocation. So yeah, DeFi is a big one. Stable coins is like, it sounds very boring, but
No. I feel like everyone is launching a stable coin now.
That's true. Like it's huge, right? And one of the biggest use cases of crypto or blockchain in general, right, is with Bitcoin. The first use case is store of value, right? And be your own custodian. So that's a big use case. I suspect is gonna number one use case in the next 20 years, if not even more. But the second biggest use case in crypto are stablecoins, right? And there is a huge usage of stablecoins in third world countries, right? In many Latin countries, Southeast Asia, a lot of business is being conducted using USDT, between China and Russia and other nations. So it's a huge use case, and that's why we decided to make an allocation in Circle, as an IPO play in the next year.
It's my current favorite stable coin. I do see like a lot. Yeah. I mean, there's two big ones. There's one of them I just feel like I just don't trust it as much. I don't know why. I think I know why, but
You
I'll
want to
keep it on.
disclose it or?
No, no.
Okay.
But well, the two famous ones, USDC, USDT, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of new ones coming up, and I
Right.
think like even if they're launched by a big crypto company, I'm not sure if it's gonna stick, to be honest, because people are just used to specific stable coins, and just too many options is part of the problem right now. Like someone that comes in, if you have a preferred stable coin and I have another one, like just if we were on the same one, if we were on the same page, it just makes things easier. And with the whole thing, like with the whole ecosystem, if there was less to choose from, taking it from the standpoint of someone coming in, like for the first time into crypto, even if they're like tech savvy or like financially, prepared to learn and they have the context, there's still too many options. And in my view, like it should be consolidated. What do you think?
You mentioned USDC and USDT, right? These are the two biggest, but the evolution or the new verticals that are happening in the stablecoin segment are mostly projects that give the treasury yield back to the users, right? Because the main business model for USDC, Circle, and Tether is that okay, you can hold stables in your wallets. You can freely move it to different wallets, but we take all the yield, right? We invest the cash we have in the banks into treasury yields. Tether is buying now Bitcoin as well with the profit they generate, right? And all the yield goes to Tether. I think like when it comes to profit per employee, like Tether is the best performing company in the world, right? It's ridiculous. But you have a lot of projects that are trying to get the yield back to the users. So we actually cooperate with Usual Finance. Interesting project ran by a guy who used to be a right-hand man of Macron.
Okay.
So very interesting project, and yeah, but there are many more launching, right? So interesting question if it's gonna consolidate or not. Let's see how it plays out. There is a lot of development happening, and we will see at the end of next cycle. Well, actually, we will see at the beginning of the next cycle, if these companies are able to survive or not.
Oh, right. Yeah. What do you think of it, Tina?
Many people compare Tina to UST, right? Luna stablecoin, and are saying, oh, it's gonna explode in the same way as UST, but fundamentally it's completely different projects, right? And what Tina is doing is basically a basis trade, right? When in a bull market, we have a lot of people who are or users bullish on Bitcoin, Ether, other assets, right? So they are using leverage. So they need to pay funding rate to the counterparty who the counterparty holding shorts, right? So you can use that to generate some market neutral yield by shorting it and buying spot, right? So this is what Etina is doing, but they're doing it very well, right? They are doing it in a very professional way. There is already some Lindy effect when it comes to Etina. They have been in the market for quite some time, and their TBL is growing. So we participated in the yield farming before the token. So that was very juicy yield. And we are still holding, in our market neutral fund, we are still holding SUSD. And we are thinking about allocating into ENA as well in our crypto long fund.
Exciting. It's going to be an exciting year. Do you have any hot takes?
Hot takes? Oof. Okay.
Something that people might not agree with you, but it's how you see it.
I think Polymarket will be acquired by Coinbase for 10 billion.
Okay. 10 billion. Okay, if it happens, we're going to clip this and you're going to be historically right.
Okay.
For everyone watching, where can they find you?
So if you go to sigilfund.com, There's a team section, and you can find me as Joe. And there's a Twitter hyperlink that goes to my Twitter.
Great. Joe, thank you.